are members of the Black Cultural Archives Youth Forum. I'm Tarisha.
I'm Hannah.
Xavier.
I'm Betsy.
And today we're going to be talking about music and its role in the Black community.
I like all I feel like it's quite a generic answer. I like all types of music. I think the ones I gravitate to most of them are R&B and hip hop. It's just what I grew up with. So that's why I listen to everything else.
Yeah, same. R&B I think is like my main genre. Then a bit of reggae, a little bit. I like jazz and blues as well. But any music that just makes you feel like calm, but still upbeat, not too like mellow. Yeah.
Yeah, I like all kinds of music as well, but I think recently I've been listening to a lot of soul, disco, just to like my parents' music basically. They would play it like when we clean or like during parties and stuff, and I'm just like doing a deeper dive into that sort of music.
Yeah, so me. I think actually, you know when you do like the Spotify Unwrapped at the end of the year, so like it was very much pop heavy last year, but the real thing is, these days I listen to music if I'm walking somewhere, but like so it like has to have a highlight beat per minute or whatever, and then like really within that I'm quite flexible. I feel like something to throw into the mix is like, I guess black music as like a way of like it covers so many different types of music, right?
Yeah.
And I guess like that's you know when you can like see how like most musical genres are like influenced by like black music with like so I feel like as a result of that there's like stereotypical music which people love to talk about in newspapers or magazines about like denigrating the black community, but then also like there's so much that is like not even kind of people don't even think of when they're thinking about
Like
that
even
kind of
country
music.
music. Yeah, it's true.
I agree, actually, yeah. I also think, I don't know, like people's positions, like socioeconomic positions have shifted. So I think people have like these very rose-tinted glasses, so to speak, of black music at a certain time that was uplifting and was all about liberation and Pan-Africanism, which is great. But also you could argue that on the flip side to that, at the time there was also a lot of slackness, like a lot of just hedonism, I guess you could say. And I think you said the same thing here. It's just more prevalent now because people have access to tools to make music. And again, they've not been kind of veering off the topic of the question, but like where there's artist development and stuff put in place for like the past generation of artists, so like Whitney Houston's, your Mariah Carey's, they've had the church, they've had someone in their family home them to sing or rap or what have you. Today's generation don't have that, so they're literally learning by themselves. So with that, you see all the flaws, you see all their inner workings and their thinkings, not just in their lyrics, but in their production as well. That makes sense.
There's more like access and more different people can just like, start music easier. Maybe too many people. I don't really know what I think about this. I feel like, I don't know. I feel like it's definitely not necessarily as empowering or liberating as it may have been at one point, but it's like, does it necessarily need to be? And music in general, it is about like entertainment, like most at the end of the day, it's about like how it makes you feel. And like, I feel like our music doesn't necessarily have to be for just like a specific purpose. It can just be for like, most of my music, I do have like playlists with like music with specific like messages and stuff, but most of my music is just like for the vibes. And like even if the lyrics aren't necessarily the most, you know, sometimes if the beat's really good, the melody's really good. I'm like, look past that. Do you know what I mean?
It's true.
Not if it's seriously questionable, but like, yeah. But I don't know. I do think music in general was probably more uplifting in previous generations. Like more like there was more about social change, more about it was more political. I feel like it's definitely less political now. Yeah.
This reminds me though, like, you know the Drake, obviously called.
Oh, the Kendrick Lamar
Yeah,
beef.
Drake Kendrick Lamar beef, where you know Kendrick is saying that Drake just makes music that's like pacifying people, and he makes all the ones that are like political and that makes people like want to go out and fight for things. So I guess like you've even got like him like being like there's a whole realm of ways that people are making music right now, and like I hear Kendrick like, but at the same time
It's like
really
two sides to it, because on the one side, like us making music that's like, let's say what Drake is doing, is it just keeping us complacent? Is it just making us like, or some music like you could say it perpetuates the social issues that we experience? But at the same time, like every time I want to hear music, I don't want to hear something like, I don't know, like Black by Day.
It's true.
I don't always want to hear, you know what I mean? Like sometimes I just want to hear just happy music that's just like a vibe. Like I don't know, I think there's an importance to both. Yeah.
like you know this whole like movement that we've had for like I can't remember the exact name for it, but like I guess in the realms of like Black joy and like having space for relaxation and peace and all of this stuff. Like there's an official name for it which I can't remember right now. But like that to kind of take time to relax and self-care and all of that, that also can be counted as like a political action. Because if like your whole life, like through generations of ancestors, like you've just been made to work and there's no time to take that time to like be soft, like that actually can be, according to some people, political. I don't know where I sit on it because I feel like, but I think there is space for both, maybe.
Yeah.
And I guess it's like defining power and uplift, because you can be empowered and uplift, like you said, through rest and relaxation. You can like, I mean, rest does wonders for people. You'd be surprised. So you know, if I listen to something that calms me, or if I listen to something that, I don't know, gets me ready for the club, that's empowering me. That's uplifting me. So you tend to be a bit more like. There's a certain type of group of people that ask that question all the time. So I think I have to ask them. You'd have to define and simplify what you mean by empowerment.
There's not only one form of like different
Exactly.
people are empowered and uplifted by different types of things. That's really true. Yeah.
I think that's a good point, because I was like, in hip hop especially, it's been about like capitalism and like making money, looking after your own interests and stuff like that, and that can be a form of empowerment for some people. But like you said, self-care is also, as we've come to learn, important, and like looking after your mental health. And there's definitely songs that like emphasize that. So yeah, but I was also gonna say that with what you were talking about, how a lot of artists can contribute to music now, like it's easier to go independent because of streaming. Like you don't necessarily have to get a label to back whatever you're doing all the time and like finance your musical aspirations. You can just put stuff out on YouTube, Spotify. So it's like, a lot of access has made it easier for people to like just basically empower each other, and even that act of putting out music on your own the way you want to do it is empowering in itself.
Yeah, because you don't have to follow a certain set of rules. You don't have to be like restricted by things. But also, I feel like some people just like are making like really rubbish music these days. You know what I mean? Like, there's like some of it is like not empowering by any definition of the word, according to anyone. So like, I feel like that's what I have a problem with a little bit. Because like, I feel like more artistic music is great. Like, it's good. If I ever want to make music one day, it'll make my life easier. But at the same time, I feel like there's some music that's just like, it's not empowering to anybody. It's just kind of just a bit of nonsense lyrics.
gravitate towards if it's mainstream or like more underground. Like you can find whatever you're looking for. Like people are always creating new things or maybe things from the past that like replicate like those themes. So for example, like if you're looking for black power type of music, it's bound to be there. If you're looking like for clubbing music or stuff that you don't have to think about like as much intellectually maybe, like you can find that as well. So I feel like music hasn't really devolved, but it's like more diversified. Yeah.
I agree with that, yeah. And it's like kind of like what I alluded before. I guess I answered like this question more than the previous question was. It's like when you like the kids have been kind of left alone to their own devices, literally. Like push an iPad in front of them, that's you leave it to them. So technology and AI have kind of taken over, and then so that human connection to music and sounds, you being taught it through school or through instrument or through church or through artist development, then all of that's lost now. So you're learning a piano through GarageBand or something, which is a bit more inorganic. So that loss to natural sounds lost, and then you're trying to have to teach yourself all these different things like what is a cadence, what is a scale, all of this. So you could argue yes it's devolved, but then you have to kind of be like, well, that's unfair because the people who have devolved the music have not really known any better, can be argued. And that's just like the physicality of music, right? The literalness of music. We want to talk about like messaging. It's kind of the same thing. And like what you said, it depends where you're looking, because I hardly believe that in the sea of the internet you can't find a black empowerment song made in 2024. But then when you're looking in the mainstream, I mean the mainstream won't show that. Your easily consumable backchat baddies and all those TV shows that the people that they produce, they're not going to make that music. So why are you going to look there? And I feel like that's
fair.
constantly where it kind of the conversation moves to. It's like trying to change these people when these people over here have been making this music. So
Yeah, why do we just go over there?
yeah.
But like, do you think that maybe like that type of music has been like pushed more? So even like obviously people can go and look for whatever music they want, but like let's say you're a child and just the music that's all exposed to you around you is giving a certain type of message. Like, what do you think the effects of that could be? Because like we've talked about music that it doesn't have to be political, it can just be for the vibes. But what about music that's like not just for the vibes, but also maybe has a negative impact?
Yeah.
Do you think music can sometimes perpetuate, like, can hold us back today?
I think that more than any other community, like that's how people have, like, as in you don't hear people blaming music for like things that white people do, that Asian people do, like, but then with black people, people will say like drill is the reason why there's high levels of crime, like WAP is the reason why we have a certain understanding, like objectification of black women, and like I think that that's something that's really racist basically about how people interpret black music as opposed to any other racial groups' music, where both those situations are issues that exist before the music comes, and like the music kind of comes like. I remember all the discourse around WAP, and it was just hilarious because people were like acting like it was the apocalypse. It was like, what's happened? There's no morality anymore. And it was like, but also it's a bop. Like, this is a great song. And like, I think when you look at like rappers like Megan and Cardi and like Sexy Red these days, like the kind of duality of the music, where on the one hand you're like, some people are obviously going to take this.
Yeah, but I feel like I respect them because at the end of the day they're capitalizing on what's already exists, on issues that already exist. Like maybe we objectify the end of the day, they're capitalizing on making a banger,
Exactly.
and they're getting their money from it. So at the end of the day, in the context of a capitalistic society that, you know, objectifies people in general, but women as well, like, if you can take that and then turn it into something that actually works for you, I think that can be a good thing. I think the real problem is like the fact that those issues exist in the first place.
For sure.
The music can be said to like perpetuate them, though, to be fair, but it exists now. Like, what can we do?
Also, when you guys was talking, I was thinking about how like the reasoning why people make music, because like, you know, musicians can make it for all kinds of reasons, right? Like it can be like, I want to make money, I know how to get this money, get me a good life, and like I think linking to what you were saying, like there is a problem in which the sort of music that can make you the most money is like maybe ones that aren't about uplifting and all of that stuff. But I don't think that's a problem unique to like even music or anything.
It's just one kind of tool to like, there's lots of different tools that can like perpetuate social issues. The more that, because that's capitalism, it keeps itself running.
As Richard could say, because people are poor, so they'll just
so they'll do whatever to get to the top, which will keep those issues at the bottom like in place. Like.
I was going to say, because that reminds me, like you can't win for losing either. So bringing it back to the drill thing, I remember when like in mass drill, and it's in British drill, mainly probably was British drill, was being taken off YouTube because thanks to Theresa May's government. And then you had like a cohort of drill artists come to the House of Parliament. I think it's House of Commons. Yeah, the House of Commons. Don't quote me. But like, they came to like Parliament. It was just like, you know, let's actually talk about why you're making drill, what drill music is. They were there, but no one from Parliament came to meet them on their level. They were just in this room together, no one from government. So it's just like, even if you try to meet them, and I mean the establishment, when you try to meet the establishment and sort of sit at their table, they're not even offering a seat anyway. So it's like, well then I might as well just do what I was doing in the first place. Exactly. So it's kind of like a losing game. You just might as well just.
It is a losing game. You might as well just take what you can and
play your room.
Yeah.
I guess like what do you? Again, like so many people ask these questions, and it's just like, what do you mean by originality? Like because. I mean, sure, there are frauds in the sense of, you know, people are rapping or singing experiences that aren't theirs, sure. But then the counter argument to that is, well, is an art meant to convey experience, like, period? Like, it doesn't have to be yours. Just as long as you're appropriating, I guess that's a different conversation. But are you conveying experience in a tasteful way if it's not yours? That's like a conversation. And then come back to this question, do you mean originality in terms of the genre people are operating in? Because then, well, you know, genres evolve and they pick up whatever's happening as well. I mean, you've seen it with hip hop, you're seeing it with R&B now.
When you said originality, the first thing that came to mind was like sampling. Because I think we see a lot more, like since the 90s really to now, mainly thinking about like hip hop, rap music, but also in like pop music as well. There's a lot of sampling of music from like before that period, and I think people can argue that that makes music lose its originality. Like you're not thinking of something new, but there's also like an art to sampling, like picking music from like a long time ago and like rearranging it to create something new. Like I think that's that can be seen as original in a way. Yeah.
That's a good point.
It is also quite cool, right, when like you subvert it, cause like bringing it back to WAP. Like doesn't that sample? There's another song it samples, which is like denigrating towards women, and then like I feel like it's quite a like boss move to just like take that and then like completely did that as well with Anaconda,
True that, yeah.
which like, not that that's the only examples of sampling, but I just remember those two examples where I was like, there's actually something quite, like that's kind of a political statement to do that.
Yeah.
And like also, you know, when you're like doing the thing where you're like, I actually know the original.
Yeah.
I'm like, you guys don't understand.
Extra cool points.
Yeah, exactly.
That's true. I mean, funny enough, I remember reading this review about Savage Remix, and they, I think the writer's Carl Lewis, and they were talking about how, like they were talking about the art of sampling, and just like, well, to sample is to like, I mean, literally take something, like a snippet, interpolation or whatever, and then make your own. But then also, sort of, you take that in its original form, in all of its aspects, and then you imbue it with whatever you're talking about. So I think, so like using the Savage Remix example, Savage the original song was about quite literally Classic Bougie Ratchet. I'm not doing it for TikTok, but like, you guys know what trend is. But like that whole shit, quite simple but quite playful. And Beyonce took literally that and built on it, so it's like you've got this fun side of being a girl, and also this fun side of being like a woman with kids and like husband. Like you build upon it. So, and then also I guess there's this other quote from Right Philip Pullman, which is like there's no real original idea. I think quite a few artists have said that, actually. I know Philip Pullman and Quentin Tarantino said this, but like there's no such thing as a original idea. Good artists pay homage, great artists still. So it's kind of like, you know, if you want to be a great artist, sometimes you gotta do a little bit of theft, artistic theft, he thinks.
Yeah, I mean, I think even house music is an example of like ideas that don't have to be like. There's no such thing as an original idea, because like a lot of house music was sampling disco tracks and like funk tracks and stuff, but they managed to create a new genre that like empowered like queer black people, and it was like led by like black trans women and stuff like that. So
I didn't know that. That's dope.
yeah, like a lot of, I think it originated in Chicago, but like a lot of black gay men, black trans women were like at the forefront of house music, and they like created it because disco was like, it sort of ended in a catastrophic way because people didn't want to hear disco. White people didn't want to hear disco. They wanted to hear rock and roll, and the radios were playing a lot of disco. So like, because disco was like, what do you call it? Predominantly black people, gay people. Obviously, white people were like, oh, we don't like that. So they wanted to like put an end to that. But in like the end of the 80s, 90s, house music emerged because people were like remixing these old disco tracks and like bringing them back and making something new.
Quite literally making them faster, isn't it?
Yeah.
I think the agenda is to be like, okay, as long as you don't, I don't know why they chose Stormzy, but I assume it's probably because his messages or whatever, his music was just deemed as not being like too much. So okay, this is kind of like the standard that you need to aspire to, or like even like what they did with like reggae music as well. They choose like specific artists to like back and uphold, so it can only be like a one at a time thing, and then all the other artists will kind of have like a hard time like competing. So it's a way to like almost like contain the scene. So it's like, okay, we know Stormzy, we know who Stormzy is. If we hold him up, this can be like the one person, not too many of them. It's cool. I think that's kind of like the kind of agenda behind it.
Quite interesting, considering Stormzy came from grime, or at least associated with grime artists. Obviously, grime being an underground, or was an underground genre, it had like all the makings of, not even violence, not what they want to put out there, but like clashing and like MCing and like, you know, roasting and toasting, like all of that. I guess very masculine spaces, which were all just, well, for the most part, fun and games, because, you know, some would come out victor, some would lose, but ultimately it was all about celebrating the art of, you know, rapping.
Yeah.
So,
But I think that is interesting what you're saying about this idea of like how these opposites are kind of created, where it's like if Stormzy's good, then every, like that means that drill is extra bad, like, and if like, I don't know, I feel like, because with reggae, like the first person I think of is Bob Marley, and I feel like there's ways in which like he was made like superhuman, he was like a symbol of everything, and like then in some ways, I don't know a lot about like how he was perceived like while he was alive, like beyond just like positive and being seen as like a really important political figure for Jamaicans, but like, you know, after the fact when people are like, oh, but actually like he was really flawed, like his relationship with women, like all of that, like it's legit, but also at the same time like, but why do we have to make these people into like something way more like why do you have to be either like what's it called, like excellent, like this whole like, I guess black excellence is more within the black community, but like this idea like that you're someone to like pedestalize versus like someone that like, oh yeah, you're like just like everyone else, like you're just dragging the whole thing down, like, but like no, everyone is just people.
Everyone is just people, like, yeah, like when it comes to like white arts, it isn't the same amount of like scrutiny, like trying to find the bad, trying to like why, yeah, it's true, like why do you have to put us on a pedestal for us to be like acceptable kind of thing? Yeah.
black artists are held to a high regard, and then when they fall from grace really hard. Well,
Exactly.
white artists, they can be troubled, they can be, you know, complex and nuanced. All these buzzwords for like.
Well, yeah, that's kind of a theme across society though, isn't it? When it comes to like law and crime and like, you know, and then when it comes to like even politics and stuff, like black politicians are held to a much higher standard. They can easily fall from grace. So yeah, it's interesting.
Yeah, it does feel like it's kind of taking the same racist tropes that are like reiterated in different like historical contexts for different purposes, and it's like the same things just in a different
form.
Yeah.
Different tool.
In terms of, I'm thinking of like why people make music in the hood isn't necessarily just to get out of the hood, but because there's like something to talk about, like there's something that you're going through that you almost as like a form of therapy are like creating poetry about and like sharing that with people, and the reason why that becomes successful is because people resonate with it. Another thing I remember people saying about drill music, not to only talk about drill, but like, you know what you were saying about them going to the Houses of Parliament, like the fact that people were using this form of music to actually like, yeah, take themselves out of the hood, but not just them, like there's some people, I can't remember who it is, but talk about how like it's about a whole community moving away, because like your best friend would be like your producer or like your promoter or like, I don't know, I'm not a musician so I don't know all the jobs that come with it, but this idea that like there are certain people who consciously do it not just to get themselves out, which is not to say that like there are people left behind.
And is there necessarily anything wrong with trying to get yourself out kind of thing? You know? Kind of thing, like what else are you gonna meant to do?
It's true. I guess there is an extreme though where it's like, you know, you're out, we're good for you, but then not only have you forgotten about where you come from, the people there, but like you're selling them things at like a higher price than you did before, you know, when you started out, or like.
And like you benefit from that every day.
Yeah.
Like you're a rapper and you have like the aesthetic, you have the traps and everything, but that's like, you know, like the people from where you came from, like that's their everyday experience. But then you show that and like, but you're living a completely different lifestyle. But then you like you accessorize with certain aspects that like were from it before. But then you get like clout, just I don't know, get appreciated for that. I think the thing is like, I don't know, individualism definitely is like become more. Has it become more popular? I don't know. It's a thing, yeah. It's more of a thing.
Kind of like part of the course pull yourself up by your bootstraps, and then you'll get individual success. But then it's like, well, no, that's not how it works. A lot of that individual success is actually kind of it's paid for you before you're even born. It's like whatever family you're part of, whatever money your family had at the start, that kind of thing.
Yeah, I think as certain people hold the economic power, they get to decide what success looks like. I think as Black people as a group are moving more towards holding more of an economic stake in let's say, I don't know, the UK. For through following capitalism, there's a lot of you could say more high-powered Black individuals, whatever, just more of us having more money. I think the next move is kind of to leverage that in order so that we can more define what success looks like for us. That's kind of what I really took what he said about pouring back into where you came from rather than just always focusing on getting out and defining yourself and your success by the rules of the system which oppresses you kind of thing. I think you have to get out first, but I feel because we've kind of been doing that, now we can kind of shift it to okay, what do we consider success and how do we invest in that kind of thing.
Truly.